Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
All right, episode 427, Law and Order Part 1. 3, 2, 1.
Aaron, you got the theme song from Law and Order ready to go?
Yeah, Derek's got it ready. Ready?
Yep, here we go.
Oh, yeah. And now you watched the show as a teenager, didn't you?
Oh, I watched it all the time.
Yeah.
You know what? Everybody just stop. Stop for a second. Everybody stop.
What's wrong?
Tony, you've had some awesome shows these past several years, I got to admit.
Thank
But
you.
I'm stumped. What does Law and Order have to do with retirement?
Well, let's find out.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
Created by Dick Wolf and airing its entire run on NBC, Law and Order premiered on September 13, 1990 and completed its 20th season on May 24, 2010. On September 28, 2021, NBC announced that the series would be revived for a 21st season, which premiered on February 24, 2022. I guess one might say that the reason for the success of Law and Order is not just because of the great writing and casting of the show, but also the apparent desire of most red-blooded Americans to respect the fact that in order for society to function properly, it needs to be at peace with itself and one another, and there must be, yes, law and order. Well, believe it or not, as much as society needs law and order for the protection of its property and their very lives, so too do savers need something I refer to as financial law and order to protect their money and their plans in retirement, which is the topic of today's show. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we show you how to create more financial order in your lives by following certain financial laws, let me introduce three full-time folks in our Worry-Free production studios here in Louisville. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander. Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. And finally, our associate producer, Miss Meek and Mild Mary Beth Combs. Okay, there you sit, wondering how in the world a little man in a sweater vest can possibly make a correlation between a hit TV show about law and order with that of your own retirement and the financial laws you need to know in order to create a worry-free retirement. Well, in more than 38 years and in meeting with more than 15,000 savers, the one thing I can tell you about helping savers worry less about money is this. If a saver who is getting ready to approach retirement or has already retired does not have a basic, very basic understanding of the laws of money and have in place a financial advisor who provides some order to their retirement in the form of a written game plan, then you can bet that eventually that saver is going to lose sleep over their money and the fear of one day running out of it. Which is why today I'm going to go back to the basics and show you how financial laws plus order equal a worry-free retirement. So stay tuned. Might want to grab a piece of paper and pencil for this one. This is really good stuff. I'm Tony Walker, and I'll be right back. Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. You know, we care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 2,000 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Growing up as a lower middle class kid in the 1960s and 70s, I must admit that I had no one in my life or anyone that knew anything about the laws of money, and certainly anyone that knew anything about such things as investments and taxes and lost opportunity cost, risk, and of course, managing money in retirement. Today, after researching and learning this business for the past 38 years and finding myself at the ripe young age of 62 and being very experienced in the art of money and retirement planning, I am most proud that we at Tony Walker Financial have created something I call the 5-step process, or the worry-free retirement, something that provides savers some order in terms of how to use and enjoy their money. Now, in keeping with the show's theme, there are basically two types of laws we need to consider: man-made laws and laws made by God. Take the law of gravity. Drop a brick from a 4-story building and it will surely fall to the ground, hopefully not hitting anyone below on the sidewalk. But there's another God-made law at work, and that's math. In fact, if you count it, 2 plus 2 has been and always will be 4. That's a law. 3 times 3 is 9. It's always going to be a law. Forget these basic God-made laws of math when you're building a shuttle to send people to outer space, and well, you're going to have consequences. So the purpose of laws, whether they be man-made or God-made, are to create order. This order, especially when one is retired, is there is hopefully something, there's a creation, if you will, of peace, or something I like to call sleep insurance.
Sleep insurance!
An example of this order would be as follows. Let's take a look at 2 examples of things you might choose to do. All right, in the first example, we're going to pick these 4 years. Now, these 4 years are very important: 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2008, and you're going to see why. But let's imagine that you're a saver, and back in those days, you could get a certificate of deposit in 2000, 2001, and 2002, a guaranteed rate of return of 6% on your money. Now, let's think about that. You put in $100,000 at the end of the first year, you know for certain you have $106,000. The next year, it compounds to 106 plus another 6, then it compounds again to another 6. And although in 2008 interest rates dropped below 6% down to 2, there is a lot of order, consistency, predictability in this type of investing. Now let's go over to option B, which would be the stock market, and as you can see, there's a reason I chose these years. Now granted, we are fiduciaries. I'm a registered investment advisor. I've been managing money for years. I have no problem with the stock market. But since we work with savers, we just don't want a lot of money in the stock market, especially if you're retired or nearing retirement, and here's why. Take a look at this and tell me if this would help you go to sleep at night. So while, yeah, the stock market's going to go up, look at these losses. In 2000, you lost 20%, 2001, 10, 2002, 15, and in 2008, you lost 37%. Now again, might be fine if you were 40 or 45 years of age, but folks, this is a show for people retired or retiring soon. As we'll see, there is very little order or consistency to this. Now, by the way, in my book, Don't Follow the Herd, on page 96, let's go to this next example, Derek. Basically, we're going to take this example of math and the laws of math and how many of you are being duped by the financial world with these average rates of return, which although they're accurate math, they're not accurate in terms of how you're supposed to go about retirement planning. Let me show you an example. So let's say for the next 3 years, you invest your money with Wally World or in the stock market. And let's say those 3 years, the first year it goes up 20%, the second year it goes up 20%, and the third year it loses 20%. Now this is an interesting phenomenon because as we record this show on August 2nd, 2022, this just happened. Everybody's had a run up in the stock market and all of a sudden it's down 20 or 25% this year, whatever it is. But you got to remember, when you lose that 20 after something has grown a lot, you're losing 20 of a compounded value and it is devastating. Now, if you just took those 3 numbers and did basic math and add them up, divide them by 3, you get an average rate of return of 6.7%. Okay, let's go to the next example. Let's say Joe Lunchbox comes to Tony Walker Financial, and overall we're trying to be conservative, and each year, in this example, we don't have any losses, which we could have losses, by the way, with our Charles Schwab platform. Again, just an illustration. But Joe Lunchbox with us earns 4.83% per year. Especially those first 2 years, they're probably not really excited because their buddy's earning 20 and they only earn 4.83, but then they're happy when the market goes down and they still get 4.83. So basic math coming up. You ready? You add 4.83, okay, divide it by 3, and you come up with an average return of 4.83. So I ask you, looking at those two examples, which would you rather be? And you say, well, of course, 6.7. Isn't that what the financial entertainers are always talking about, this average rate of return, all this money we've made over the stock market? Well, actually, that's not accurate at all. In fact, if you do this, what's called weighted average, you'll notice that the actual yield, what you actually made from this equation, was not 6.7, but 4.83. In other words, if you put in $10,000 at the end of the year, you'd have $11,520. Well, guess what? It's the same exact amount of money you would have had in this example had you played it safe. So I got to ask you something, folks. Many of you are retired or retiring soon. And as I see it, when you bring your statements in, you bring your worries in, and we sit down and talk, you are taking way too much risk with your money. So here's a question for you. If we could accomplish all your goals and objectives without all this risk, why wouldn't we do it? And that's what we specialize in at Tony Walker Financial. So right now, if that's you, if you're retired, retiring soon, here's another thing. Maybe you're over the age of 59 and a half but still working, and you didn't realize you could roll your 401k over at no cost to somebody like us. Why not consider this? Log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. When you get there, just click on that Let's Get Started button. Your information will be totally and confidentially sent to our offices. And then myself, that's right, the owner of the company, will call you to arrange what we call a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Not interested in submitting things on the internet? No problem. Just call the toll-free number on your screen and we'll make that happen. Okay, when I return, this is a wonderful case study, something you're going to stay with and remember for the rest of your lives, and it could rock your world in terms of how much risk you're taking and also falling for some of these too good to be true schemes from the annuity peddlers that are lurking about. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. Do you own an annuity purchased prior to 2015? If so, you may be missing out on the many benefits that modern-day annuities can offer. You know, over the years, things have certainly changed in the world of finance, and guess what? Annuities have too. To learn more about the modern-day annuities we offer at Tony Walker Financial, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Our Tony in the Trenches is coming to us from Gary in Bowling Green. This is an interesting one. He says, Tony, I've watched your show for years, and up until recently, I thought you only worked with millionaires. However, I was talking to a coworker who makes the same amount of money as I do and said that they work with you. So here's my question. Do you have a minimum account size that you require before working with anybody? And actually we do, and it's only $50,000. Again, folks, we are here to help savers, and while many firms won't even talk to you unless you have $250,000, we will. So if that's you, if you're retired, retiring soon, maybe you've received an inheritance, why don't you right now log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and just click on that Let's Get Started, and we'll be happy to see if we can help you be worry-free. Okay, at the core of the worry-free retirement process is this idea of helping savers create peace and order in their lives, but this doesn't always happen. Case in point, let me set the stage. Again, I meet folks with 20 to 30 people per week, and on this recent occasion, I had an 80-year-old gentleman, a widower, who came to see me and wanted me to go over his statements with his adult son, his only child. So let's do this. We're going to go over to the whiteboard, and I'm going to show you how this all played out. Got my cheat notes here. And basically, there was 3 options this person could choose. First of all, they were shopping around for an annuity, and they'd recently talked to someone who was touting something called a bonus annuity, which, by the way, we represent bonus annuities as well. But as you'll see in a minute, this person had no clue what they were looking at, and the results of this could be disastrous. Obviously, they were already in the stock market. Now, the stock market account they wanted me to look at, which the person admitted they did not understand what they even had. And I mentioned to the person, I said, sir, back in the fall of last year, it was worth $400,000. Did you realize now it's only worth $300,000? To which he said, son, I can't read those statements. I didn't know what it was worth. So I said, well, sir, let me ask you a question. What do you really want to happen to this money? I mean, you're 80 years of age. And he said 2 things. I want to guarantee my principal so that when I die, I can leave this to my son. And I want to just earn some guaranteed interest. It doesn't have to be a lot. And I said, that's all I need to know. So I compared what he was thinking about doing, which incidentally, this bonus annuity, again, we represent this company. We don't sell this product a lot because you're going to see why. Paid a 20% bonus up front. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty darn good. You give them $300,000, and the insurance company is going to put $60,000 of real money in the contract. And we'll see what happens to that in just a second. Or I said, hey, what if you could just get some sleep insurance?
Sleep insurance.
And he laughed, and he said, yeah, that sounds good. What the heck is sleep insurance? And I said, well, what we're going to do, and let me make this comparison, but what we're going to do is this is under current rules, folks, and these interest rates change all the time as we record this show on August 2nd, 2022. But basically I said, sir, what if for the next 10 years, now I use the word guaranteed, we could guarantee a 4% return on your money, all right? And at the end of the 10 years, 100% of it would be available to you guaranteed, the $300,000. He goes, well, that sounds wonderful. But what about this bonus annuity? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, the annuity peddler who sold this to them did not mention that there's a fee of 0.95% per year, which is obviously going to eat away at any return. Now, in this example, the gentleman did want some income, so we're imagining that he took out $12,000 a year. And the reason I arrived at that is because I just took basic math. Remember, we're talking about the laws of money. I took 4% of $300,000 or $12,000 or $1,000 a month. That's what we're guaranteed going to send him for the next 10 years without invading his principal. So what happens if we do this? Well, since we don't know what Wally World's going to provide, there's no way to even know this. Plus, Wally World in this case, most advisors are charging, by the time you add in all the expense ratios of all the other funds they're selling, it's at least 1.5%. So in 10 years, it's a huge question mark. And this is what he was trying to get away from. Again, this is a saver who's age 80 and just lost $100,000 on paper and was tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market. So now we're left between this, which is basically a fixed interest annuity, which I call sleep insurance, and a bonus annuity, which we're going to see has a lot of variables that this person wasn't aware of. So in the contract, I got the contract out and I said, worst case scenario. Remember, folks, if we're providing guarantees and comparing guaranteed products, we have to look at the worst case scenario, which in our case is this. That's the worst it could do. But on this contract, this person was not told this. The worst case scenario, it's only going to earn 0.25%, but the fee's 0.95%. That's not good. Also, too, I said, sir, if we tallied this up by the 10th year, let me again get my cheat notes, there would only be about $225,000. And he said, how so? I said, because of all the fees and the $12,000 a year you were taking out. But here was the worst part that was never told to this person by the person selling the annuity. Here was the bad part. This bonus, this is a 16-year contract, so this bonus does not vest or begin to vest, that means it's going to be credited if you take it out, until the 11th year. So if in the 10th year, this gentleman decided to liquidate this, not only would he only get $225,000 worst case scenario, the company's going to take back the bonus, plus there'd be a penalty of 8%. I mean, what a disaster. Now, does this mean you shouldn't buy a bonus product? That's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is this product, the way they're being sold, and by the way, folks, I represent 4 major markets, so I see these things sold all the time, and people, unsuspecting savers, having no clue how the devil in the details really works with these products. So whether it's the people I serve in southern Indiana, in the Lexington area, the Louisville area, the Bowling Green area, there's a huge problem right now, and it is this. More and more people selling annuities, and they are not fiduciaries. In fact, put up this article full screen here, and this is really interesting. This article just came out recently, and literally it says, study, bad advisor behavior persists under state insurance regimes. Now I want to focus on this part right here. It says, taken together, these trends suggest that bad advisors in the FINRA, that's a regulatory body that I'm under as a fiduciary. Again, we're under strict codes of ethics and things we have to disclose. Most people that sell annuities are not, and this is pretty scary. But anyway, it says, In the FINRA broker regime, when they exit but continue to provide consumer financial services, in particular, the evidence shows that many become insurance producers. So what the article goes on to say is the reason a lot of people sell annuities, and the reason sometimes annuities get a bad rap, is because I think some of the people selling them are not regulated highly, and nobody ever calls them on the carpet on this stuff. So maybe that's you. Maybe recently somebody pitched a bonus annuity to you. Man, that sounds good. I get 20% on top of that. But if they forgot to tell you about the fees, they forgot to tell you about the minimum guarantees, they forgot to tell you that that bonus is not vested right up front. In other words, there's a lot of devil in the details that many of these people are leaving out. So you might say, Tony, well, what's the solution? Well, first of all, the solution is if you're going to be investing your life savings with somebody, I mean, folks, you got one shot to get this right. Why in the world would you not be at least working with somebody that's highly regulated, and that would be somebody like us that is a fiduciary? And the other thing is, why would you not be working with somebody that provides a full service planning service at no additional cost, which we do at Tony Walker Financial? In fact, besides myself, we actually have 3 highly trained salaried fiduciaries, along within that an additional 11 full-time people whose main mission is to make sure that there is order and structure in your planning, and also that everything is fully disclosed so that you can choose what's best for you. So if you're kind of missing that right now, if you're retired or retiring soon, or maybe you're thinking about buying something and realize, wait a minute, slow down just a minute, maybe you just need a second opinion before you fall into something that could be detrimental to your financial health, do this right now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just click on that Let's Get Started button. That information is going to be confidentially sent to our offices in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and then we will arrange a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with myself, and if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this notion of law and order? And what did God provide us that He also provided the lowly ants and locusts? Some good stuff coming your way. I better get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
And now, back to the Worry-Free Retirement with your host, Tony Walker.
Earlier in the show, I mentioned the fact that there are 2 laws at work. Those created by man, which I'll refer to as man-made laws, and those created by the creator of the universe, God-made laws. Now, assuming you believe in God and follow along with the teachings of the Bible, we see in 1 Peter 2:13 that everyone, yes, even us Christians, are to follow not only God's laws, but the laws of man, no matter what types of laws they may be creating and how ridiculous they might appear to be. Now, in my world of retirement planning, our offices must not only understand the laws of money, but also keep up with the changing tax laws imposed on our clients as well. So how do the ever-changing laws created by man compare to the never-changing laws given to us by God? Well, as we see in the Old Testament, those who followed after God were required to follow to a T God's laws as well as, or face the judgment of failing to do so. This insurmountable burden placed on mankind to try to keep God's laws in the way that might maintain some sort of order among God's people proved to be impossible, and God knew it. Yet, in all of man's futile attempts to keep law and order, it's interesting to note that the lowliest of God's creatures can and do maintain order in their lives because they are equipped by God's Spirit. Take, for example, the lowliest of them all, ants and locusts. Why should we concern ourselves with the work lives of the ant? Well, in Proverbs 6:6, it teaches us that in order to have order in our own lives, we should observe the ways of the ant and notice how God's Spirit gives them the sense of mind to work and to store in an orderly fashion. You know, the last time I checked, ants don't waste time binging on Netflix nor sitting on their derriere wasting time scrolling around on Facebook. No, ants go about the business to work and keeping order. Another example of God's Spirit at work in the creatures is found in Joel chapter 2, verses 7 through 9, where the Bible speaks of a legion of locusts and how by God's Spirit instinctively these thousands of locusts flying together remarkably are able to remain in order, not breaking rank, and doing God's bidding as they are called to do. Of this interesting phenomenon of God's creatures maintaining order, the great writer Charles Spurgeon says, "The same rule that applies to the order of God's creatures should apply to us. We must know our place, take it, and to keep it, for to do so will bring to us peace and order." You know, it's true. Keep your nose to the grindstone, work diligently like those ants, mind your own business, and no matter how bad things might get, like the locust, stay in formation and watch how the Spirit of God will work for our good and His order. Yet there's one glaring difference between us humans and the ants and locusts of the world. It's something we have that they don't, and it's called a soul. And not just any soul, but as the Bible describes it, a living soul. A soul that has trouble keeping its hand to the plow and our eyes on God, and instead tends to easily be distracted with chasing after the things of the world. An aimless soul the Bible describes in Psalms 42:1 as thirsting and hungering for His goodness so that we might find peace and order. This living soul, which burst onto the scene back in one simple act of breaking God's law, could never be satisfied by keeping God's laws, but by replacing them not with more laws like our friends in Washington do with the tax laws, but with one perfect law, a law of grace and mercy brought on by the death of God's Son. Not a new law of the letter that kills, but a new spirit that brings life, peace, and yes, order. So here's my thoughts. Just as you should take time to understand how the laws of money can bring more order into your retirement, so too should we take time and consider who we should look to for the peace and order that our souls desire. A peace and an understanding that the Bible says will guard our hearts and guard our minds in Christ Jesus, not just now, but long into eternity. And my friend, that's some really good news you can take to the bank. Well, how about you? Are you that saver who is losing sleep at night trying to do retirement without a written game plan? Maybe you're that person who is thinking of retiring soon but have no clue who to trust with your money and how to go about seeing what's involved in this thing we call retirement. Or maybe, just maybe, you're that person who is fortunate enough to have just received an inheritance, sold a business, land, maybe sold your home, or you just have a bunch of money languishing over at the local bank and just need somebody you can talk to. Well, that's the good news, because right now you have the opportunity to talk to the owner of the company. That's right, myself, Tony Walker, who for the past 38 years has dedicated my life's work to helping savers worry less about money, and I'd like to help you too. To get started, all you have to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and click on the Let's Get Started button. Or if the internet's not your thing, you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we look forward to visiting with you next week, because next week we're going to have part 2 of our show, Financial Laws and Financial Order. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you remain steadfast and you be worry-free. Make it a good one.